Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Simnaya Online. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. There is something white people will never talk about. They will talk about everything on this earth. Tell you about how there is black on black crime, and they don't talk about their own white on white crime. If there is something like that, right? They will never say something like that. But I am going to ask, why is it that you all don't like talking about history? What your ancestors did, what they did to my own people, how you all keep lying that our freedom was handed over to black people and other like to black people. Why they fought their way to freedom? Why do you people always deviate from the reality, from the truth? You all dehumanize people that look like me today. Wait, is slavery really over? Of course, it's not over. But you all will never talk about that. You all will never say how it evolved, how mass incarceration is a thing, how police brutality is a thing. But you want to sit down and you want to talk to black people about black on black crime. Who are you to open your mouth and tell me that? You know what? I know how rich the cis majority of you are, but I suggest that you go back to your community and start the work because black people are done doing the work for you. Let's get into this video.
So, let me tell you a story that was never supposed to be told. Because if people really understood how chattel slavery started, they'd have to admit that this country was never innocent. It wasn't founded on freedom. It was founded on a formula: blood, control, and legal torture. See, chattel slavery wasn't just slavery. It was the most brutal, calculated system of human degradation ever written into law. And America didn't inherit it. It built it on purpose. So we're taught that the story starts in 1619 when the original enslaved people arrived in Virginia. But it really starts way before that on the coast of West Africa, where human beings were hunted, villages raided, mothers dragged from their homes, babies taken from their backs, people chained together, branded with hot irons, burned like cattle before they even touched a slave ship. Then came the Middle Passage, bodies stacked below deck, no air, no light, no dignity. Many died. Some jumped into the ocean on their own terms. They would rather drown than be sold. But when they arrived in the colonies, they weren't welcomed. They were inspected, priced, and sold. Children torn from mothers, spouses separated without a second thought. And the worst part? There were no laws protecting them, because there were no laws that recognized them as human. They weren't seen as people, because they were property. And yeah, some African leaders played a role in the trade. Some sold prisoners of war or rival groups into European hands. But this idea that Africans sold their own people, that's a distraction. Africa is a continent full of hundreds of cultures and languages. The Europeans showed up with weapons, gold, and a business model, and they built the market for human lives. Without European demand, there is no transatlantic slave trade. Full stop. In the early colonial days, slavery didn't start as permanent. Some Africans were treated as indentured servants, just like poor Europeans. But then white landowners saw an opportunity. Why release a worker when you can just own them forever? Why pay for labor when you can force women to give birth to your next generation of workers? So they changed the laws. If your mother was enslaved, you were too. No exceptions. Becoming Christian didn't mean freedom anymore. White servants got contracts and land. Black people got lifelong bondage. That wasn't confusion. That was strategy. They were never trying to civilize Black people. They were trying to own them forever. But wait, how do you convince a society that all of this is okay? You build a lie. They said Black people were cursed, less intelligent, animal-like. They used scripture. They used fake science, measuring skulls, ranking races, and publishing pseudoscience to prove what they already decided was true. They needed people to believe that we were made for this. Because if we were human, then the system couldn't be justified. So they rewrote what it meant to be human. White supremacy wasn't born out of slavery. It was born with it. By the 1700s, America wasn't using slavery. It was running on it. Cotton, tobacco, sugar, every dollar was built on Black backs. And our bodies weren't just labor, they were capital. You could borrow money against an enslaved person, insure them, trade them. Black women were forced to give birth not for family, but for profit. They turned wombs into factories. Wall Street involved. Banks invested. Universities funded by it. Presidents benefited. This wasn't a broken system. This was the system. People love to call it America's original sin. But sin sounds like a mistake. This wasn't a mistake. This was a blueprint. A system designed to extract everything from Black life: labor, language, names, lineage, and leave us buried in unmarked graves. And after they took everything, they rewrote the story to make themselves look like heroes. So no, chattel slavery wasn't about labor. It was about domination, reproduction, and inheritance. It wasn't just brutal. It was intentional, legal, and profitable. And it didn't end when it was abolished. It just evolved into prisons, into housing policies, into generational theft. So, you want to talk about American values? Well, this was the first one, and this country has been protecting it ever since. America loves telling you that enslaved people are passive, that they just accepted their chains. But they never tell you about this woman. Meet Hannah Kelly, a woman who picked up a brick and fought her way to freedom with her bare hands. Because sometimes survival wasn't about waiting for a better day. It was about swinging first. Hannah Kelly was enslaved in Virginia in the 1800s. Not just working fields. She was forced into a life where abuse was constant and resistance could mean death. But Hannah wasn't built for silent suffering. One day, when her enslaver assaulted her, she grabbed the nearest weapon she could find, a brick, and she beat that man so badly he couldn't get up. No slow speeches, no polite pleading, just pure rage and pure survival. She knew what would come next if she stayed: torture, execution, or being sold deeper into the South, where she knew death would be slower. So she didn't wait. She disguised herself as a man, escaped alone, and made it north, dodging slave catchers, informants, and bounty hunters every step of the way. No Underground Railroad support, no convoy, just grit, terror, and the absolute refusal to die a slave. And she survived. She lived the rest of her life free, carrying scars on her body and a memory that America would rather you never hear about. Because in the textbooks, they want you to believe that freedom was given. But Hannah Kelly, she showed it was taken. Hannah Kelly didn't write a famous speech. She didn't wait for a war. She grabbed a brick and swung for her life, and wrote her own revolution in blood, sweat, and footsteps heading north. And if you've never heard her name before today, that's not by accident. That's America erasing the people who reminded them that Black freedom was never handed out. It was snatched with bruised fists and battered hands. Say her name: Hannah Kelly.
To all of you that are saying that Rodney Hinton is some kind of national hero, let's go over a few facts. Black America makes up 14% of the U.S. population, yet accounts for 29% of the nation's firearm-related victims. Black America has been 2 times more likely to perish in firearm-related incidents than any other race in the past 2 decades. 89% of all Black firearm-related homicides are perpetrated by Black offenders. So you guys are killing your own people, and the Black community says nothing about it. A cop unalives a child who stole a vehicle and then pointed, we don't even need to say pointed because you guys are disputing that fact, had an illegal firearm that he brandished in front of officers, and his dad runs over a cop that had nothing to do with the unalivement of his son, and you guys think that that man is a national hero. Make that make sense. So as long as it's you guys that are killing each other, everything's a-okay. Make that make sense. That are saying that Rodney Hinton is some kind of national hero.
You know, I want to start out on a positive note, okay? Congratulations. Congratulations to you. I can see that you just walked away from that Crystal Beth hold that was on you. Probably kicked the opioids too. Good job. And I know that this is relatively new for you. You do have to go a little bit of time, from what I understand, clean, before the government will pay for you some new teeth. But looks like you met a milestone, huh? Yeah. Now, if you would just settle into your teeth before you start that rapid fire racist talk, You keep your secret a little bit longer. But, you know, words are going to fly. Now, for this 14% of Black Americans talking point that all of you white supremacists are wanting to latch on to, I just want to unpack a little bit of that for you. You see, first of all, there is no such thing as black on black crime. If there is a such thing as black on black crime, you guys are topping it with white on white crime, okay? Because your numbers are bigger, much, much bigger, okay? But this 14% of Black Americans is obviously skewed because do you know how much of law enforcement is made up by white supremacists? Just people joining police forces so they can be issued guns and sanctioned by their state to unalive and incarcerate Black people. Look that number up. Have you ever heard of the school to prison pipeline? That is another racist institutional practice that actually profiles little Black and brown kids, disciplines them, and this is all proven statistics, okay? Harsher punishments and harsher disciplines for them that then get them kicked out of school and speeds them along the path of criminal activity. No? How about, have you looked up the numbers of actual police officers within Black communities versus actual police officers within white communities? Because if you look that up, you would be able to see that white people have all the space and opportunity to commit crimes because cops won't stay out of our goddamn neighborhoods looking for criminals. All of those things play into your 14% flawed ass statistic. While you're settling into your teeth, maybe do a little bit of reading. I want that for you. And also for that Black woman that said all gingers are Black, fuck you say. The fuck you say.
That are saying
This is all I got from this video. And unfortunately, these people will never talk about something good. Now, they are looking for Black on Black when they are the ones that are committing majority of the crimes going on in the United States. Because check the amount of Black people in the United States and the amount of white people. Is it because the Black community is over police, or is it because you people get away with literally everything? We know all of that. The only thing we are fighting for so far is just to make sure that this system is dismantled so we know who is who. So I am going to say this. They will never sit down and talk about slavery. They will never sit down and talk about how Black people were dehumanized, how Black people were treated, how things were during slavery, because that is something they are not proud of. And they are looking for every possible means, every possible way to make sure that that history is there, but you cannot erase somebody's history. That is also one of the reasons why I keep telling us, make sure you teach your children your history so that they don't grow up and repeat the same history. They would. I remember a white woman sometime, I brought a video here, who talked about how, she is Russian. So she was taught in school that, during slavery, that slavery is not as bad as, people say it, or Black people say that it was just something that happened and that they found out that it was not good and they stopped and everybody lived happily ever after. That was just what they told them. Who lived happily ever after? That's to this very moment. What Black people still not going through it. Who lived happily ever after? Have you ever given Black people peace? And you want to talk about living happily ever after? That is all the lies they say. They tell you that the freedom was handed over to you. Well, Black people have to fight for it. They fought for it. Tell me how after slavery, people were leaving plantation to look for a better way to better themselves. And guess what they did? They enacted another law, that is Viagrant's law. If they see you outside as a Black person, they put you back in the same plantation you left. Tell me how people that left plantation, how were they supposed to support themselves aside from going out to also look for job and all that? All these things were the things that you will never talk about. And you are going to sit down and tell us about who are the people who's doing the Pe0ple? Who are they? Is it me? Why are you people not seeing it? Or is it because the media has really been doing great? I mean, you all pay so heavily so that they tell the story upside down. We know the truth. And the truth, we are trying as much as we can to spread it so other people will get to know. People are already knowing your mission, your propaganda machine is already failing. So can you just go take a seat? Tell your brothers and your husbands, because majority of the corps are your brothers, your husband, and your sister, your siblings. Tell them to stop unaliving us. Bye for now.